Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 533 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And this week, dear people, we are exploring the Pusciverse with Carina Round. And I know it does sound a bit naughty, but I can assure you that it absolutely is not. And you should immediately get your head out of the gutter. We are talking all about the world of Puscifer, and Carina is going to help us understand and even be excited about the mysterious world that they are continuing to develop. The new Puscifer album, Normal Isn't, will be available on February 6th. A few tracks and videos are available right now you could enjoy, and you could, of course, set yourself up to download the streams of the full album when they're available and pre-order a vinyl copy. Lots of places to be able to do that. May I recommend the Queen Bee Vinyl Shop in Cottonwood, Arizona. The copies they have there are always quite special. However, there are many other places you can get the album Normal Isn't, including your local record shop. Go in there and hassle them and make sure that they will have it in stock, and you can pick yours up on February 6th. Also to note, there is a live Puscifer video live at the Pacific Stock Exchange, and that will be screened for only 3 days, February 6th, 7th, and 8th, and only at selected record shops and locations. So check out Puscifer.com for a full list, and hopefully there's one near you. Now, today, Carina shares all about her journey with Puscifer, the characters, the creative process, collaborating with Matt and Maynard and the others, as well as her own solo works and the vinyl status of those. Carina gives us a scoop that is quite exciting, but I'm going to let you listen and find out what that is yourself. And by the way, there are some vinyl titles of Carina's work at carinaround.com. Her records are always very limited pressings and often quite hard to find, so grab some up there while you can. And hey, if you like records, music, and miscellaneous nerdery, well then follow this podcast. We've got over 500 interviews available. They're all free. Artists like Billy Corgan, Bootsy Collins, Raymond Pettibon, Lucinda Williams, Gibby Haynes, Billy Gibbons, Mike Watt, Jerry Cantrell, Eddie Kramer, and more. And all you got to do is follow us for free in your podcast app. And if you want to show us some love, you can always help support us at patreon.com/vinylguide. That's not mandatory though, but that is appreciated. Okie dokie, let's shed our earthly skins and head into the Pusciverse with Carina Round. This week on the Vinyl Guide, we are very pleased, astonished, in fact, to be welcoming Carina Round. We're going to be talking a lot about Puscifer and her solo works. A lot of things are happening in the world of Puscifer, or the Pusciverse, I believe it is called. Is that right?
Yeah, I like the way you pronounce it.
How do others pronounce it?
I think Pusciverse.
Pusciverse? Okay.
Pusciverse.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are averse to saying Puscifer because it sounds like a swear word, but I think that's what it is, to be honest.
I think it was intended to feel a bit naughty rolling off the tongue in the beginning anyway, yeah? Well, seems to be. The new album, Normal Isn't, is available February 6th, and there's a movie, there's a concert film that's coming out for independent record stores that'll be shown between February 6th and 8th, I believe. Is that right?
That's right.
Excellent. I've got my facts right. And there's a comic book, the Pusciverse comic book, which is now sold out. There's a lot of things happening around
Tales from the Pusciverse, yes.
Yeah. Now, how would you describe Puscifer to someone who's unfamiliar with the band?
I would say it's kind of a multimedia project, and the music is dark and driven and serious, but can sometimes have subject matter that airs on the side of fun and confusing. I think it's definitely will keep your interest. There's a lot going on. It's not just, a band putting out music.
Mm-hmm.
for the last 20 years, there's been like this whole story growing with in the background with characters that Maynard has invented, with stories that all are finally interconnecting with each other, with the comic books that you mentioned, and videos that we've been shooting to bring all of the stories into some coherent point, so that, but as we move forward, there can be like a solid backstory.
Oh, okay. So because I'm pretty familiar with Puscifer, it's always felt like a bit of an art collective because there's music, but there's so much video. There's a lot of theater around it. You've got
It's very
bits,
theatrical.
Yeah, there's bits like the comic books and things, but I didn't realize that there was a through line.
There is now.
Okay.
I don't think anyone realized it for a while, but Maynard, being who he is, wants it to have a thread so that there's a story. Can't deal with like loose ends spinning around, so he's bringing them all together into something probably real fun and stupid and silly, and also serious and deep, which is what he does best, I think.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So is normal isn't. What role does that play in bringing it together? Is this getting towards a final chapter, or where is it in the position of this tale?
I don't think it's a final chapter. I think the story grows and grows as Puscifer does, and as the story grows out, as Puscifer continues. Like you said, it feels like an art collective. I think it started more as like a comedy collective 25 years ago or whatever it was, and just it does have what he calls a revolving door of characters coming in and out, guests and musicians, and basically family that continue to come in and out. I think the new characters and the new storyline that's emerged from this record are probably the closest thing to trying to express who we all are as people in an artistic way, or as artists, or how what we bring to Puscifer.
Do you have names for the characters?
Yeah, we do. There is Belendia Black, or Belendia, Fanny Gray, and Matt's character is simply the Synth Whisperer.
And that's the new album. So the character, I guess, from the video, you've got the character with the red top. Who is that? And what is this
My
character about?
with the that's Fanny.
That's Fanny. Okay.
Yeah.
And how is Fanny, like, what makes her kind of unique in this Pusciverse?
In this Pusciverse, or in whatever you're gonna have to wait for the videos and the comics to come out, because that explains all, and I don't want to fuck everything up by telling you the spoilers to start with.
Oh, that's fine. We love to try to find these things, but that's interesting. We know kind of a little bit of what to look for here. So this seems to be a big year for Puscifer. How much planning is there for a Puscifer cycle? Like, when did the germination of Normal Isn't start?
Well, the germination started pretty much right after the last record, I think. That's just how it works with this band and us and these guys. None of us really have much downtime in terms of just like, oh, that's done, so I'm just gonna go on vacation. That's not really what happens. After Existential Reckoning, I think Matt was coming up with musical ideas for his folder. He has this mystical folder that he starts putting musical ideas into, that then historically Maynard would be inspired by certain ones and write lyrical or melody ideas over. This time, later in the game, when it became clear that we were actually all cogs were rolling into making a new record, Maynard discovered, actually Matt showed Maynard how to use Logic, and he discovered that he could come up with musical ideas that better expressed what he was trying to say and do. Like, he had this other part of himself that he was trying to get out, and that's what he did with Logic. So there was more input musically at the beginning from him, like for sketches and ideas that Matt could then pick from and choose to. I think Matt liked the idea of being able to start in a different way, to just him coming up with ideas or lines or a beat or whatever, which he loves doing and he's brilliant at. But I think it was nice to have external input too, for when he needed a refreshing change musically.
Okay. So this mysterious folder, in the past, Matt would have populated it with, dozens of ideas. Maynard would
literally, yeah.
Yeah, Maynard would sift through them, pick out a few that seemed to speak to him more than others, and kind of start molding them a bit. Yeah. At what point do you start coming into that process?
After he's breathed a vocal on it, either just a rhythmical or melodical idea, and or might sometimes, if I'm not feeling like it's there yet, I'll wait until the lyrics are there. But lyrics are a huge thing for me. They're huge. They are important to the way I sing. So a lot of times I'll wait till the lyrics are down, because then I can really let loose on what's going on.
So it's kind of the structure, you just understanding the narrative or understanding the direction that then...
No, the rhythm of the words.
Okay.
Will inform where I go with it. Mm-hmm. So I can have a melodic idea and put it down as an idea to sing over if I'm hearing something that I think is really strong and hooky, as they say. And then when the lyrics are in, then I can really get into the nitty-gritty of what I do.
Okay. It seems like a very unique position that you hold, like in the musical field, almost like a producer and a participant.
I mean, I think I'd be careful of saying that there's a producer in a role in it, but I would say that whenever one of us does something and bats it back to the others, it does inform what they're doing in response. So that's the dynamic that we have. Initially, the dynamic starts between Matt and Maynard, and then when there's something in there for me to get involved with, I put my stuff on, and then that informs how it changes in other ways. So I think, that's why it says produced by Matt Mitchell and Puscifer, because ultimately the song forms around what all of us are doing. It comes, one person does something, it goes back in the folder. The other person does something, it goes back in the folder. And then Maynard might change something and until ultimately it's getting close to what it is, and it develops very naturally. But, it's interesting because we all work somewhat separately, unless, Matt and I are going to Arizona to record Maynard's vocal, and then we're all working in a room together, right? But Maynard has his own recording setup. Matt has his own room here in this studio, and this is my studio in the same building. And we have the hub or the core of this folder, and then we all work separately on our things. But there's just a level of trust, an element of trust we all have for each other's process. And also we all have our own quality control. Mm-hmm. So we know that by the time it gets to the folder, the magical folder, it's already gone through rigorous control quality control. And also, I think each of us individually, and this is just, obviously I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I think we all walk this line between, we're pushing ourselves artistically as people into trying to do something we haven't done before, just not repeating ourselves, not trying to change the world, but not repeating ourselves, but also ultimately above everything else, we're serving the song. So we have this line that we're pulling between doing something creatively obnoxious, but also serving the song. And I think we all have that similar, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vision, perhaps?
Yeah. Vision. Yeah, could be many. Insert word here. This is my job too, writing lyrics. You wouldn't think it. Not for this band.
That's all right. So the one thing that really strikes me of Puscifer is the timbres, the audio. There seems to be a lot of very unique sounds. I don't want to call it soundscapes, but unique mixing and effects, and also harmonies. And to me, that puts together so many possible variables and other universes that each of those can kind of spring off of, that I would imagine you guys would have to have a lot of very strong communication and trust in one another to then kind of form all those into that single direction. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think, like I said, we're all people that are trying to push ourselves as individuals. And I think one way that processes outwardly for Matt is that there's always some new piece of gear that he's tinkering with, but it's not like he's got a room full of all this like esoteric gear. It's like he becomes really into learning and using a certain very particular thing. Like he has a Fairlight, he has a Synclavier, he has Moog One, he has a Prophet, and he masters all of these things. And he also, he doesn't only use antique synthesizers, he also has really cutting edge stuff that he brings in, but it's always just like a very specific few pieces per record. And then in terms of his guitar sound, he's curating that very specifically. He had a guitar made for this record by a company in Texas called Robbing Guitars that he was inspired by when he was young, and he chose particular high watt stack that got the sound that he wanted. So his sonic journey is very specific. Maynard, as we know, is just, I don't need to speak about his brilliant talent. And then, for this record, I used something called an Eventide 4500, which is a piece of outboard gear from the 80s, I believe. And oftentimes before, I've just come up with vocal lines based on what I hear and then put the effects on afterwards. Whereas this time, I sang through the effects unit and really let it inform what I was coming up with, which made for some cool. I actually did it on Existential Reckoning a little bit too, but it actually, it changes what I do. And yeah, I just think we all have this kind of unique way of expressing ourselves that somehow works symbiotically with each other. And yeah, like you say, there is a certain trust and, kind of communication, but, there will be just like, sometimes Maynard will say, this is the feel I'm going for in this song. And sometimes I definitely go for that. And then sometimes I end up throughout the song while I'm doing it, I'm not feeling it, and I'm feeling something else, and I'll go in that direction. And it just happens. And then, sometimes I'll give, if I'm not landing on something for one song, I'll give Matt 4 different literal ideas, like 4 different arrangements of different vocal parts for him to choose from. And maybe he'll use all of them, or maybe he'll use bits of all of them, or maybe he'll just use one, or maybe the next day I'll come in and do something else and be like, scrap all of that, this is better and simpler.
Right.
It's a process. Everyone has their own process, which I think if we were all working in a room together would just drive each other insane. But because we have our own space and we have the trust and we've developed this relationship, it somehow works. I don't even know if I answered your question, but I talked a lot.
Yeah, and it was quite fascinating. So that's fine. We'll mark that as yes. Each Puscifer release, there tends to be kind of a long form video with it. Are those discussed early on, or does the music get locked in first, and then that's the basis of different visuals and other elements jumping off?
I think the music forms first, and then as that becomes what it is, other things are built around it. And in terms of the show, like how the show looks and how the videos look, that's all Matt coming up with the stage plot and ideas. He'll just build the stage and has very strong ideas about the lighting and how it's going to look and where the drums are going to be, and all of that stuff. He comes up with that. And then in terms of the characters, the way they look, like this time we were still working on makeup and hair an hour before the show that we recorded. And it was kind of a panic for me anyway in that last week to find the right outfit and to do this and do that. I was going for like a cross between a Blade Runner and manga heroine, so I having that in mind, but then also knowing an idea of what Maynard was going for, I built my character within that last week or two. And then amazingly, when we came together, it was cohesive. And I don't know, I like to actually put my finger on how those things come about. It's hard, but in terms of like how the show looks, that's very, very specifically Matt that draws out stage plot and does all of that. And Arcasanti that we did for the last record, that was him. His ideas. He found a location. He had very strong ideas about we were going to be in 3 different locations and how it was going to look. Maynard's idea was the agents. So they talk about that, and somehow their ideas come together and they make it work. It's all just a weird, a chaotic and but very. It feels a little chaotic, but it's also very focused. The way Puscifer works.
I believe, I may be wrong on this, but I believe Maynard may have a background in improv. And I'm not sure if you do, or if you've had experience acting, but to be able to still be working on the character within hours and then go out on stage to then film that, what is a concert film.
Yeah.
That's, I bet you were happy at the end of the day once it was done.
I was. I think for me, that's how I live my life for the most part. It feels in those last moments before it comes together, it feels like absolute chaos, but really it's been going on back here for long enough that I trust. I think it also, as you get older, you just start to learn to trust your brain. And yeah, I think he probably does have some kind of, I know he has history in comedy because that's where Puscifer started. It was like a comedy club. I don't have any history in acting or comedy. I'm just very naturally funny.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a joke, obviously. And I did actually start an improv class recently here in LA, the UCB, like in the last month. Just
Citizens
101
Brigade.
Upright Citizen Brigade, yeah, just because I wanted to. I mean, it was my worst nightmare. The idea of it's my worst nightmare. Standing up on stage without a plan and trusting that there's going to be some successful outcome with a long form improv idea is me basically just immersing in my absolute worst nightmare. And that was why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to face that, whatever that voice is in myself. And it's been hell, but I'm glad I did it.
Are you still doing it? Are you still
Yeah.
taking the classes? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still coming to the end of my improv 101 class.
And you'll go to 102?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably should.
I a little bit about me. I did comedy for several years.
Oh, you did?
I did, and you can tell I'm a very funny person, right?
Exactly. We're both fucking
Hilarious,
rolling around laughing all the time.
And it was one of the most important periods of me being able to shape myself. It created a bravery, not fearing a crowd, not worrying about being embarrassed, not worry,
I believe you.
It put iron in me, right?
I've experienced, yes. It's been the hardest, most difficult thing internally for me these past few weeks, but I believe you. It's really hard.
I'm trying to get my kids to sign up for improv classes because I know how important it, especially when you go to speak to a crowd or you go to read the room. It's so important. So yeah, I commend you on that. And anyone who does want to learn a lot about themselves, I would encourage them to explore the possibility of doing improv.
Right. I also believe, and I don't know if you had this experience, it really is beneficial for everyday life interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Because it basically you're just learning how to listen to what someone's saying and it. I mean, it just really made me realize how little we do that in life to each other.
I agree.
Great.
I agree. How did you get involved in Puscifer from the beginning?
I think Matt saw me play my own stuff at a venue in LA, and he also knew someone that worked at the record company I was signed to, and he reached out. Matt reached out. I think they were looking for someone, a female in particular, as a long-term member, or at least someone for that record. And yeah, Matt saw me play and reached out. And I listened to the first record, V's for Vagina, and it just first of all, the title appealed to me. And I remember just listening. I'd obviously heard of Tool back when I first started touring. My drummer was like, "You've got to listen to this," and played Tool, which I think most drummers at some point in their life do. And I just remember thinking, well, this guy's voice is amazing. And then receiving V's for Vagina and listening to that record and just thinking like some of the subject matter was so strange and it was so brooding and sexual, but the way he writes lyrics and delivers these lyrics just makes everything feel so serious and connected, even when it's a song about oral sex or a song about someone having a big butt or whatever it is. Obviously, there's also very, very serious subject matter, but I just found it very compelling how he was addressing all of the things in a really articulate and beautiful way. And I think that's a running that runs through the core of Puscifer, I think.
Oh, he's brilliant at expressing himself and drawing someone in, and even things like the chicken eggs. Fascinating discourses on areas that I guess I'd never thought about.
Yeah, I think it's very artisan and connected to values. When he speaks, it's always from a place of his values. And I also think he has this brilliant knack of, like you say, expressing himself, but I think he expresses so very clearly, expresses a mood, and immediately what you're supposed to be feeling from the mood. For instance, the first song on the new Puscifer record, Thrust or Self-Evident. But he also leaves enough space within all of the lyrics that you can make your own story from it. Like, he's not telling you exactly who it's about or what it's about, but internally you know exactly what's going on. Yeah. And so few people are that adept at that.
Yeah. I've been blessed with a copy of the lyrics of the album and reading through them to really, okay, that's what I thought was being said there. The tension, I think, is masterful within Puscifer and Maynard's other projects. But, just like the first track, Thrust, God, it just feels like you're on a ledge.
Yeah, I think Matt is really very, I don't know, he's got a lot of talent with the sounds and just holding back, like making you think what's going to happen, or making you think you're in this groove, and then the rug gets pulled from under you, but you still feel like you're free falling. I just think he's so good. He's so good at that.
Yeah. What's something you learned that you now hold as absolutely foundational in your creativity, that you learned only through your experience with Puscifer?
It could be considered a negative thing, but I don't think it is. The lack of preciousness about an idea being the right idea, or the amount of time. For my first experience in the studio with Puscifer was Humbling River. That was my audition, so to speak. And I showed up and I was covered in bed bug bites, and from some stupid experience I'd had before. And I showed up at the house in Arizona with Matt, and Maynard came in, said his ideas about the track. This is what I'm looking for, and then went off to deal with something in the winery. I had this cat around my neck. She was a hairless cat, and she just wanted to be attached to someone. So she was around my neck while I was singing this song. And it was so vague what he had said. I was just like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to do whatever I hear, or I think sounds good. And I did what I did. And he came in and he listened. He's like, that was not what I wanted, but it's really good. Great. And I just realized, like, there's a certain level of freedom, and this is something I learned throughout the process. That wasn't that just one moment of, oh my God, it's so free here. It wasn't like that, but there's a certain level of freedom that the people have, because he has his story to tell. Matt has his story to tell, and you should have your story to tell. And then all of them should fit together. Same with the drummer, same with the bass player. Come in and tell your fucking story as best you can, as in the best way possible that serves the song. And if it's good, it'll stay. And if it's not, it'll go. And there's no preciousness about it. You come in, you do your thing, and it's good or it's not.
Yeah.
With my own music for so many years, there was so much control that I felt like I needed to have. There was so, the guitar player had to do something a certain way, or if it was kind of weird, it would take me a second to relax into it. It could be neurodivergence, I don't know, but it was like being in the studio with Matt and Maynard initially was just like, wow, it's like I have my idea that I know is good, and I'm going to put it right here. And you guys, you good? See you later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so fucking mind-blowing to me. It was so freeing. Just being able to watch that process and learn that it didn't have to be about, like, art didn't have to be pain. If you know what I mean.
I think I do, because, to be able to have that level of partnership and trust, and I think we're going to go back to the communication, each participant needs to have enough confidence to be able to put themselves out there and to also follow the best idea, not the one that's just theirs. So ego needs to be stuck aside to really allow each person to contribute to their fullest extent. And that to me sounds like a very unique ecosystem. Yeah,
it is. It's great. I remember very early on, I was in rehearsal and we didn't know each other very well at this point, and it hadn't gotten to the point where we clicked yet. But I said something like, I'm going to change the melody. I'm going to change this harmony on this line because I think it works better. And he just looked at me and said, I don't care as long as it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, all these neurons just got re-fired. And it was amazing to me. And that really is what set the path for me in this band of feeling like, okay, so I have to be my own quality control and push myself for myself and also serve the song. And those are basically the values here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just very, I don't know. I don't think I'm articulating it as well as I would like to be right now, but it was very freeing for someone like me who had always felt very entangled in a certain idea of what I thought creating was supposed to be.
Well, it gives you the freedom to pursue your version of the truth in an artistic sense, if I could speak on that behalf.
I think you're right.
And it's been a while since you've had a solo record.
It has.
How is this process, or how are your learnings going to inform? I'm assuming there's probably another solo record somewhere out there in the hopefully not too distant future.
Yes, I'm assuming that too.
What state is that in, and how is your approach for Puscifer informed and evolved your creative process for solo work?
Yeah, I think it probably has in a very significant way. I mean, also something else that's informed my writing process is that I have a child. So there's like a lot of different, whereas at one point I used to be able to just sit with a guitar or whatever was inspiring me, or like get into like my hyper attention phase of like researching one element of a Greek myth or whatever the fuck it was that I needed to crack to get this lyric line to be perfect. And it was over days, or it was into the night, or I could just sit down and pick up a guitar whenever I was feeling it to try to like work out this song. Or I don't have that anymore. Like I have an 8-year-old son and have for the past 8 years had a child. And, early on it was very much more intense having where my attention was going as a mom. And, you said you have kids yourself.
Mm-hmm. They're
And I think
maniacs.
when they,
Yeah.
they're maniacs and they're attention suckers, like all the time, not just when they're with you. I haven't been able to finish a single thought for the last 8 years. And now it's just getting to the point where, or a cup of coffee or anything without it being intercepted by 8 million different other thoughts that had nothing to do with being creative or art, So I think along with what I've witnessed and experienced in Puscifer and how I have to change my creative process in terms of the time I have and the freedom I have outside of that, it's a very different process for me. I'm relearning myself as an artist, redefining who I am as a writer.
So that toil that you would have on that one line, or that strive for perfection, you think that's you have a different approach now, you think, or you're a little bit less, or maybe a little bit more kind to yourself in that regard?
Oh, don't get me wrong, I fucking loved it. I loved that excavation because I think what happened was while I was doing that, while I was excavating, while I was just just dissecting the words or the sentence or changing the rest of the sentence based on whatever word was in there and just the extra meanings and just the flow and the rhythm of that word and all of those things, that was my way of processing the emotion that was underneath it, right? That was
Okay.
my weird and logical way of expressing myself, of expressing the emotions, and ultimately whatever I landed on was what rang true to me most, but also what fit with whatever the music was in a orally pleasing way. So I think I'm just gonna have to find a more succinct way of getting there. And as you can tell from when I speak, I'm not a very succinct person.
Oh,
When it's down, it's very succinct, but the way I get there is a nightmare.
oh, you're expressive, and look, in many ways, I'm the same way. I one of my biggest pet peeves is being misunderstood. So I go out of my way to try to be extremely articulate to paint that
Right.
picture, right?
Right,
And
right. That's what it is. Yeah.
Whether that gets received in that way or not is then not my fault because I
Right.
did my best. So when you have something like The Disconnection, you recently revisited it live after 20
Yeah.
years. What was
That
that
was so
process?
fun. It was really fun. It was really fun because I remembered while I was writing this record, in the way that we just spoke about, like the excavating and the hours and just fucking smoking cigarettes and drinking and whatever I was doing in my little bedsit in Birmingham, England. Or whatever I was doing, narcissistically self-centered young female. I remember just like the feeling I had when I was writing these songs, and I was a little confused, and I was like, is this whatever? And obviously at some point I would land on something and I'd be like, that's it. I don't know why. You just know when that's it, right? But there was also a lot of like, I have to write this song, or I have to finish enough songs to get on the album. So there was a deadline, and there was this self-drive that I had, And the lyrics have always been very important to me. But I discovered recently on revisiting that it was so much more connected and articulate than I realized at the time. I'm listening to those songs now, and there was also a sense of naivety about me then, looking at it as the grown adult who's been through what I've been through now, looking at those lyrics, just feeling the naivety, but also thinking, wow, you were so wise somehow and so connected, and you were putting these thoughts and feelings together with these words in a naive but very meaningful way. Like, it was very satisfying for me to revisit that and also get to re-perform those songs now as the adult version, being able to nurture that child that was essentially a child writing those songs. And I was able to, as a parent, just reconnect with her, and it was a lot more rewarding than I expected it to be.
I imagine it would be, when I think back of my youth, I tend to overpronounce some of the more checkered areas.
Yes.
And doing something like this, I mean, it feels very emotional just talking about it. Like, you're almost able to revisit your younger self and almost forgive your younger self and learn and understand kind of that you were perhaps a much more informed or better person than maybe you gave yourself credit for in years since.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also, I think as a trauma response, as a person, I've learned how to dissociate, right? And I think I learned how to do that from a really young age. But these moments when you're writing, you cannot be dissociated. You're very, very present with yourself and very connected to whatever's happening internally. And it was so strange for me to go back to each of these songs, just relearning the chords and singing them took me right back to the room I was in when I was writing them, the feelings I was having. Sometimes I would remember moments I was having when I was writing the words, or performances I've had in the past of those songs. And it just made me realize, like, art and music and creating was my way of just not being a dissociative person throughout my life. It was my way of connecting and making you feel, giving you that life force. Because in the world we live in right now, it's so easy to just hamster wheel.
Now, you painted a picture that there may be a solo project, another solo album in the coming years. I don't know if that's a 2027, 2028 thing, how you're thinking about this. Your back catalog, and we talk a lot about records and vinyl, and I don't know how important vinyl is in your life, but a lot of your catalog is very difficult to find. Any sort of thoughts, or is there a future opportunity for us to have a reissue of the Disconnection or some of the other records that are hard to find these days?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I recently reprinted Tiger Mending. I not too recently reprinted the Disconnection for Record Store Day at some point with some extra tracks, maybe some live stuff on the second vinyl. That's pretty hard to get. I illegally printed the Disconnection because that's still an Interscope record. So back in the day, I bought, like, it's very important to me, is my answer, because I wanted it to be on vinyl so bad. I printed the vinyl and then I bought these cardboard sleeves, just cardboard, and screen printed the face on the front and then sold them as bootlegs because I wanted it so bad to be available on vinyl, because to me it's a whole different experience. I don't have to tell you. Things You Should Know I released on Picture Disc because that was an EP. picture disc, I feel like they're things of the past now because they're very exciting and they're beautiful and they're a nice collector's item, but I don't feel like they sound very good for the most part.
The fidelity's not great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, these days for me, it's more about the fidelity and the listening experience. And also, I think I'm hoping for Record Store Day. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I think so. I think I'm trying to re-release First Blood Mystery.
Ooh. Okay. A scoop.
A scoop.
Oh, that's lovely.
But yeah, from here on out, I will always release vinyl because it just feels to me that's how it should be. I grew up with vinyl. I love listening to vinyl. And whenever I love a record, the first thing I try to do is buy it on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not available, it's sad to me. So
Yeah, I always think of streams as placeholders until I get the vinyl.
yeah, or even if, I haven't actually had a working record player in a really long time, but knowing that, I still buy the vinyl. If there's an album I love and it means something to me, it's like a postcard of a time in my life, or something that was important to me. I get to have this vinyl and it's meaningful and it's physical and it's deliberate. It's deliberately the artwork and the tactileness, and each track is chosen in a certain order for each side because it's only a certain length. Like all of these restrictions force you to make these choices for vinyl, and it just feels like more like a gift.
Yeah, you have to interact with it a bit more. You have to be respectful of it, otherwise it'll skip, or you have to take care of it. But also the constraints, like you say, 24 minutes aside. You have to. It takes a little bit more planning and cooperation, which I think is a fun challenge.
Well, it also takes commitment, which I've noticed these days from my own child and my stepdaughter who's 17. Like there's very little commitment to even listening to music these days. They're obsessed with music, but there's no commitment to listening to one song all the way through beyond 30 seconds. And also there's no commitment to, I'm in the mood for an album or a style of music right now that connects with the way I feel. It's just playlists, oftentimes that aren't even chosen by you.
Mm-hmm.
You play a song and the next song is chosen by the algorithm, and all of this is great. And the good side of that I found is that, my kids might listen to Elliott Smith and then the next song is Clairo and then the next song is just like some Huntrix. And the next, it's, when I was a kid growing up, I was a snob about certain kinds of music. And there was so much snobbishness. And there was like the goths, and there was me that was into Pixies, and it had to be like, or whatever, and it had to be like very serious in a certain way. Not just serious, but serious in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this guy over here that, liked Natalie Merchant and all that kind of stuff. And everyone was very much into what they were into. And it's just not like that anymore. They like what they like, no matter what the genre is. And I think that's great. But at the same time, there's zero commitment to a mood, ever.
And you're not committing to the journey that the artist has laid out. Track 1 to track 2 to track 3 to side A, side B. If you're just kind of spot checking things, it feels. Mm-hmm. Again, no judgment if that's how people like to listen to music.
Yes.
So the disconnection live, there was some extremely limited versions of that. A ocean blue version that had like 13 copies made.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that came to be.
I will. My friends opened a pressing plant in Los Angeles. And of course, you've probably talked to artists forever about how difficult it was for a while trying to get vinyl pressed, how expensive it was, and how like the minimum order made it so difficult for independent artists to even press vinyl because it was just so expensive, too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys had just opened this plant, and I think it was like 20th anniversary, whatever. The color for that was emerald green. And I wanted a green, and then I wanted a different kind of color. But what ended up happening was something happened with one of the machines, and there was, for some reason, we got like 15 of these very specific ocean blue colors. And I just loved them so much. And it was kind of a meaningful, happy accident. And I just wanted to make it into a thing because, again, the whole thing of making vinyl and it being tactile is that there's a process to it. There's an actual very laborious process to making the record and the vinyl. And the parameters to that are so very specific that if something is off, the whole process is fucked, right? Or the whole process is different to how it's supposed to be. And I just liked that when they first started pressing a certain thing, one of the settings was offish and it became its own special moment.
Wow. Yeah, those are exceedingly rare, as is most of your catalog. But look, Carina, I know we're running out of time for this conversation. I'd love to have you back on.
I would love that. Anytime.
Yeah, whenever you have something to share, especially if you guys are going to come down to Australia again. I sure hope we see you in the next year. I want to remind folks the new Puscifer album, Normal Isn't, available February 6th. There's a video live at the Pacific Stock Exchange, only at independent record stores, February 6th through 8th. There's a comic book that unfortunately is sold out. Maybe there'll be another repress. Puscifer.com, or follow them on socials. And also CarinaRound.com. There is some vinyl left. Some of it's autographed, so make sure to snatch that up before that's gone. And Carina, it's been an absolute honor to speak with you. And thank you for being patient with my record nerd questions.
Of course, anytime. Bye.
Take care. Cheers. Oh, absolutely lovely conversation. She is welcome back anytime. And I got to tell you, the new Puscifer album is killer. I've only heard the digital files so far, so I can't wait to get my vinyl copy and hear it in full fidelity on the record player. So make sure to order yours now. Puscifer.com has links to where you can do that. And of course, see the movie Puscifer live at the Pacific Stock Exchange. And also don't forget CarinaRound.com. Grab some of her solo albums. She does some great work outside of Puscifer. Make sure you check that out as well. And look out for her special release next Record Store Day. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who's leaving positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And those of you who are helping support this podcast at patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. Well, I love you too. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, you all behave yourselves. And thanks again for listening to the Vinyl Guide podcast. Cheers.